Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. We are here to help you out. Now, let's just get to it.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Free Exchange of Ideas. We're going to continue on today with world economic power, not economic power, I apologize, but with alternative power sources, wind, solar, nuclear, I said solar, biofuels, there's wave and hydro. So we're going to discuss that real quickly. We're going to focus on just like 2 or 3 of them, maybe I think 5 actually total, right? Because we've already talked about the other ones. And so this will be like the third, I think it's the third installment. So we'll do 1, 2, and 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Iceland. Iceland is one of the few countries on the planet that is almost 100% renewable fuels. They use geothermal to create electricity. Geothermal actually creates about 85% of their electricity, which is pretty freaking impressive. They also use hydropower and geothermal together to create electricity. But and some of the geothermal is coming from, they have like 200 volcanoes on this island. This island isn't big. I think we discussed it, and I apologize, I don't know the exact number, but I'm thinking there's less than 500,000 people there. It's really quite small and beautiful from the photos that I've seen. So back to 200 volcanoes, large number of hot springs. So what's that? Yeah, I think that'd be a great place to go. Not going to Europe or Germany or whatever. I know Germany's part of Europe, but but yeah, that's one of those places that's really kind of out of the way and has so much going on. They like I said, they also have a number of hot springs and therefore abundant sources of heat, easily accessible underground water. This is converted into energy for both power generation and direct use applications. So they're really focused on staying that course. And like I said, they're using not just geothermal, but they're also using hydropower. So they have a lot of waterfalls and big running rivers. So they're able to really use that water to generate energy to use throughout the island. It's just fascinating. Everybody goes there to study that, how they do it and try to bring it back to where they're at. And I know the biggest problem with like the United States or even Mexico or Russia is just we're so large, physically large countries, and the three that I mentioned, United States, Mexico, and Russia, have millions of people. The United States is like 330 million right now, a little over 330 million people. Russia is right there. Mexico is like 300 million people. Scaling something like that without, like Iceland has all the volcanoes, right? Scaling something like that without having those base resources just doesn't work. So I think wind is probably going to be the way. Wind and solar probably be the way the United States goes. Probably with some. Now I have to look. Hydropower. So that's just my thought on that. But on top of what Iceland is doing, there's a new wind company, Norwegian company called Wind Catching Systems, and they are building wind farms that are not just the big windmills. The big windmills, it takes too much to build those and push them far enough out into the ocean to really generate a lot of energy. And then of course the transfer of energy from there to the mainland, you're talking, cables the size of transatlantic phone cables. We're talking, 5 foot diameter cables. So this new wind system, and I promise you, I will put this all in the box, but I don't know if I can. Oh no, it's embedded. Oh, there we go. that should help. I hope you can see this okay. I'm going to bring it right up to the glass there. See how that's set in there? And those are just little, what do you call it? Could you see that, Donovan?
Barely. Like a webbing?
Huh? No, it's not webbing.
Like a webbing? Was like a webbing?
No, it's just it's a big frame and cross members, but it has, yeah, like lattice cross members, but it has twisty turbines in it rather than propeller like. This thing generates 5 times the energy that an equivalent wind farm would generate, closer to shore, which allows for better transfer of energy to shore, because now you're talking a shorter cable. Still big, but shorter distance. And that's important. And if you talk to anybody that does electrical work, you don't want distance to be your issue, because the further it goes, the more resistance it builds up and the less you get at the other end. So there's ways to help it, but with transformers and stuff, but nonetheless, you still lose. And this is supposed to be much more efficient, closer to shore, generates 5 times the amount that an equivalent wind farm generates right now. This company is supposed to be going out, pardon me, they're developing this, but it looks really, it looks very promising. It's a floating multi-turbine technology for wind farms that could generate 5 times the annual energy of the world's largest single wind turbine. That's monster. The increased efficiency is due to an innovative design that reinvents the way wind farms look and perform. Unlike traditional wind farms or wind turbines, which consist of 1 pole and 3 gargantuan blades, the so-called wind catcher is articulated in a square grid with over 100 small blades. At 1,000 feet high, the system is over 3 times as tall as an average wind turbine, and it stands on a floating platform that's anchored to the ocean floor, so it's not going anywhere. It's supposed to be pretty well balanced so that even in a good storm, it's not going to fall over and so get damaged and need to be replaced immediately. The company is planning on building a prototype next year, and if it succeeds, the wind catcher could revolutionize the way we harness wind power. I just think that is great. I love that we're not quitting on innovation. Once in general, we figured out how to use wind and know that, these 3 blades will turn this engine and generate energy. And we didn't stop there. We found new ways, better ways to make it better, to make it more efficient, to make transfer of energy more efficient. Nobody stopped thinking. Just the fact that we're still trying makes me happy to kind of shorten it. But I just think that that's probably one of the great ways to go. Solar is another great way to go. The more efficient we get with solar, and the more room that we use for solar, like large schools where they're making their parking lots solar generated, apartment complexes which are using their carports and putting solar panels on top of that and generating energy for the complex. The biggest problem with solar and wind is that it's not a 24/7 thing. And so you have to create storage systems. Same with wind. Wind doesn't work 24/7. Sometimes we just don't get no wind for weeks. So you have to create storage systems so that when we do get the energy, we can store it, pluses and minuses, right? But we're moving forward, and I think we're moving forward in a good way. I think that's really all I have about solar, because it's not about the specific things. We have to get them better, more efficient. That's the thing we're looking at now. I think storage is going to be the next big change in the industry. Bless you.
Ooh, sorry.
Donovan, how about you tell us what you got?
All right. Well, let me move in over. A quick side note, quick little tangent of things that you mentioned.
Oh, okay.
U.S. has a population of 332,915,000.
So almost
so,
30. So almost 333.
Yeah. So Mexico. Hold on one second. Where'd it go?
I love him. He always checks my numbers. He's like my accountant.
Mexico has 130,262,000.
Really, I
Russia,
really thought they were much closer to us.
Russia's 145 million, almost
Closer
146,
to Mexico.
145, 912. Yeah. So not very populated.
I'm sorry. I did want to thank you for pointing those numbers out to me. I did want to say I just heard a news report today about why solar panels are becoming difficult to find, difficult for companies to get to put on your house. Most of the solar panels that we get come from China, and currently China is cutting their production and cutting their sales outside of China. Donovan, I'm going to shut up. Oh, yeah.
Iceland population estimate of 2021 is 371,580. So yeah, less than 500,000.
Yeah, less than
371.
Hey, I was closer than I thought I was.
Yeah. This one I looked those up while you're talking. Okay, hold on really quick. Let me look this up here. I'm gonna talk about really quick biofuels, which we did kind of discuss a little bit last time. So I'm just gonna do a quick blurb on it. Just kind of so biofuels are biomass energy sources which use animal and or plant life to create energy. So they're basically it's energy obtained from organic matter. Right. It's renewable if it comes from plants, obviously, so they can be regrown on a yearly basis. However, they do require a dedicated machinery for extraction, which does contribute to increased emissions, even if the biofuels that they are what's the word I want to use?
Processing,
not excavating, but farming. Doesn't produce or reduces emissions. But biofuels are increasingly being adopted in the U.S. in particular, but they only made up 7% of transport fuel consumption as of 2012. And I do want to say, like, one of the things when Alex talked about that was one of the things that we learned, that I learned, right. I was surprised about the emissions that they produced. It was pretty fascinating. So
yeah,
so that's biofuels is that. I am going to talk really quickly. I did talk about tidal energy last time. So right. I'm going to kind of combine wave energy and hydroelectric. Hydroelectric's all pretty well known. We create a dam, we release the water, turns turbines, creates electricity, pretty self-explanatory. But it only produces 7% of the energy produced in the United States. So interesting little fact there about that. So you obviously have to have the water source to do that and stuff like that. So yeah, I could see that being obviously an issue of where and how. So hydroelectric, pretty self-explanatory. I think we all kind of know what that is. 7% energy production in the U.S. though. Okay. The other one I want to talk about is wave energy, slightly different than tidal. Alternative energy fuel. Let's see. Its advantage over tidal energy is that it can be placed anywhere in the ocean in various situations and locations. So it doesn't have to.
The wave energy can?
Yeah. So, cool. But much like tidal, the benefits come in the lack of waste that's produced. It's also more reliable than many other forms of alternative energy, and it still has enormous potential that's still being studied.
Does it sit on the ocean floor or on the floor? Not necessarily way the hell out there, but or does it float somewhere in the middle, kind of?
Point absorber, oscillating wave surge converter, oscillating water column, overtopping / terminator, submerged pressure differential, bulge wave device, and rotating mass.
So those are the, like, would you say 8 different ones?
Eight types based on the technology used.
Oh, that's cool.
I should have studied this more. So I was just looking at the board, but it doesn't give me a lot of. Actually, it doesn't give me a lot of info here. Even on Wikipedia.
You mean like on who's making it or what they do?
Wave power. desalination, pumping water. Wave power generation is not widely employed in commercial technology compared to other established renewable energy sources such as wind power, hydro, and solar. There have been attempts to use this source of energy since at least 1890, mainly due to its high power density. As a comparison, the power density of photovoltaic panels, solar, at peak solar installation, and the power density of wind, the average annual power density of waves. San Francisco cost is 25 kilowatt. Is that million squared? I don't know how to say that.
What does it look like? Can you show it to me?
In 2000, the world's first commercial wave power device, the Ely Limpet, was installed on the coast of Ely, Scotland. Is it Ely?
Eli.
Ely? How do they say it?
I don't have any idea.
Like the Scotch. In Scotland, it's in Scotland and connected to the national grid.
Oh, wow.
In 2008, the first experimental multi-generator wave farm was opened in Portugal at the, excuse me for saying this, Agucadora Wave Park. Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool.
I will put this link in there. I did not study this as in-depth as I'm now looking now. And there are 8 different technologies for wave energy production.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into all of them. But wave energy, obviously you have to be close to the coast to do something like that as well. So it's not obviously good for every country. But if you're coastal, it might be, might be worthwhile looking into. Let me go back to where I was at. So wave energy, placed in the ocean in various situations and locations. No enormous potential.
Sounds like it.
But basically slow uptake. Yeah, not a lot of I guess fusion of money going into that necessarily compared to some of the other like wind and solar. And obviously that's obvious reasons, I think, because you have to have access to that too. So a lot of landlocked countries, states, and stuff like that wouldn't, like, why would they put money into doing something like that? So I see that.
I think they would put it more into the hydroelectric, dam a river, that kind of
if there's a water source too, right? You got to have the water source for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to think, and when you do think that, you have to think downriver as well, or upriver, like what happened in China when they did the Three River or the Three Gorges Dam. They lost all those fish upstream. So
yeah. So and then you got to look at other things too, like to get somewhat climate, which we talked about earlier too. Like one of the things I just heard was that with current climate conditions the way they are, even in the U.S., the Colorado River, they had to reduce power and stuff like that. They had limited because there's less water, they're producing less energy and stuff like that. I guess they kind of planned for that in advance for this year. But what they're doing now is they're looking at long-term plans of basically being less water available to produce hydroelectric power on the Colorado River. So if things keep going, the droughts keep going as they are, and stuff like that, it's definitely going to be obviously limited water, and it's going to produce limited energy. So it's definitely something to look at in the future for the U.S. Maybe luckily only 7% of the power in the U.S. is produced by hydroelectric, but definitely, a lot of that's on the west coast. So so it definitely matters a lot to people. Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, California in particular, the most populated state. So
California is more worried about water than they are about power from Colorado's dam works.
Yeah, the water's, but it's all water based, right? So yeah,
right.
So it's definitely something I didn't really do study on that, but definitely something I'll look up that article though, and then stick that in there. The other thing too, and you were talking about too, is one of the things I was reading about just recently too about the Colorado River and was releasing water. So originally the Colorado River flowed all the way down into Mexico. So now Mexico doesn't get hardly any water because we're using all that water for ourselves. there's some deal met with them to release some of that water and reinvigorating the old delta, and what that does for the environment down there. So trying to figure that out. You also look at the Nile River. Egypt, is trying to use dams and stuff like that, and also Ethiopia. So you're looking at those two big countries basically fighting over water on the Nile River there.
Right.
So I think Ethiopia, it starts in Ethiopia and flows out towards Egypt, out into the Mediterranean. So Ethiopia was like, we're going to build these dams and use all the energy and take all the water. And Egypt's like, WTF, like. So It's been interesting little political geopolitical dynamic going on over there in North Africa. I've been kind of keeping an eye on because it's kind of interesting to see two of the big African powers. So, things like that, you got to think about things like that, the U.S. and Mexico, what would happen, say, if Canada dammed up a river that's floating into the U.S., like they said, the hell with you guys,
Right.
So there's that to take into consideration too, I think, when you look at hydroelectric. But that's all kind of political stuff, and I'm not going to get into that. But I think, Johnny, is it your turn?
I have something actually kind of piggybacking on water turbine generators. There's and this is a small thing. This is more for camping or a gold, what do they call it? Gold country cabin, which is really just like the size of a closet. You can put a bed in there. And what it is a small, about this big turbine that you can drop in the creek. And what it does is it generates enough power to charge your phones, to run a small like Coleman type stove, that kind of thing. It's actually a really, really neat idea. And I didn't realize there are tons of different kinds of small hydropower type systems. There's also this, there's this other one that I love the crap out of this one. The Whirlpool turbines. The water, you're next to a creek, you build a sluice to draw water from the creek, and it goes downhill into a slipped turbine and back out to the creek. And in doing so, that turbine can, because it's a good sized turbine, I think the turbine hole looks like it's about 4 feet across. So it's a good sized turbine inside of that hole. It says it can generate enough power to provide electricity to a small neighborhood, 10, 12, 15 houses. I thought that's pretty cool. Somebody ought to be doing that. Yeah. So Donovan, now we're going to talk about nuclear power. Yeah.
Yeah. And a quick little history about this. Back when I was at San Jose State as a student, in my one of my poli-sci classes, we were doing energy stuff, and we each got assigned. Yeah, poli-sci, one of my poli-sci classes. I'd have to look up which one it was. I can't remember, but poli-sci class, we're basically doing energy, and each of us got assigned in a group. We were in a group, and we each got assigned the different alternative energy sources. I got nuclear. And I would have to say at the time, back in 2004, I was not necessarily big on nuclear energy. But within that class and studying nuclear energy and stuff like that, I became a really big fan of nuclear energy because of that. And there's
a lot of great points in nuclear.
And now that we've been doing this, and I went back and studied nuclear energy again, I'm still a big fan of nuclear energy. But the pros of nuclear energy, I actually took notes. So when I took notes, I actually just studied it. So yeah. So pros of nuclear energy, I'm gonna try to go through this really quick. It's very low pollution. There's very little to no discharge of greenhouse gases. When you look at nuclear energy, the World Nuclear Association says nuclear energy produces 29 tons of CO2 per gigawatt hour. Compared to solar energy is 85 tons per gigawatt hour. Wind is the best one, 26 tons per gigawatt hour. Coal, 888 tons per gigawatt hour, and lignite is 1,054.
What was that last one?
Lignite. It's like
What
coal.
is that? Oh, it's coal.
Lignite. Yeah, it's, you make me look this up.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you knew.
Yeah, the lignite. It's basically kind of like they use it for coal. But
okay.
So 1,054 tons of CO2 produced per gigawatt hour. So
Wow.
the other thing is that number two, it's a very high power output. Small amount of uranium can fuel a 1,000 megawatt electric plant, which can power a city of 500,000 people. Nuclear energy has the capacity to handle large-scale power needs, such as manufacturing and industry, while wind and solar don't yet. They don't quite have that capacity yet. So,
right.
Three, it's very stable. 20% of the electricity in the U.S. comes from nuclear power plants out of 98 plants in the United States in 30 different states.
Cool.
Which I looked at. I have a map I can send out.
Okay.
I'll send that to John to put. So, it has low operating costs. It's estimated cost of managing disposal radioactive waste and disposal. The cost of disposal of radioactive waste is 33 to 50% that of a coal plant and 20 to 25% of a gas combine. So once you start, taking those apart, nuclear plants have a lifespan of 40 to 60 years currently. The DOE, Department of Energy, estimates replacing a 1 gigawatt nuclear power plant would require a 2 gigawatt coal plant or a 3 to 4 gigawatt renewable energy source, such as wind or solar, to replace the energy from a nuclear power plant.
Right.
5, it's really reliable. It doesn't depend on the weather or anything like that. Isn't affected by anything like that. It's very proficient. It's a high energy density compared to fossil fuels. The amount of fuel required to power a nuclear power plant is much less than it is than conventional power plants. So compared to coal, obviously, and stuff like that.
Right.
Doesn't rely on fossil fuels. Isn't affected by the changing costs of fossil fuels, which go up and down, stuff like that. So doesn't depend on that either. It's economic plant. Nuclear power plants can employ anywhere from 400 to 700 permanent people, 90 people for a coal plant, 50 for natural gas. That's what I have here. So but yeah, nuclear energy is really neat. The cons of nuclear energy: environmental impact. Mining and processing of uranium is, I'm gonna say, rather dirty. It's not clean. Transporting it is also a potential environmental hazard as well. Disposal of radioactive waste is dangerous. It's difficult. Radioactive, high temperature waste. It's expensive and high maintenance as well once you start disposing of that. So keeping an eye on all that stuff too.
Well, and you got to remember, when you're talking about on-site and at disposal sites, the security people that are out there are military level security. So they're not cheap, and there's a bunch of them.
Well, one of the things too was talked about was, like, it's terrorists are trying to access nuclear information for themselves, and also they're saying these could be obviously nuclear power plants, nuclear waste disposal facilities as well, could be targets for terrorists as well. So
sure,
I say good luck with that. That's what I'm going to say to that. The third one is accidents. Yeah, you talk about 3 Mile Island, you talk about Chernobyl, you talk about Fukushima. So those are the 3 big ones.
I think though,
the ones that we know about.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, if you think about it, how many plants did you say are just in the United States?
98.
98 just in the United States, and Chernobyl was not the only one in Russia. Fukushima was not the only one in Japan. France is really high on nuclear power, and to have only 3
Major
and honest-
incidences.
3 major incidences, right? And honestly, only Chernobyl is still a hot pile. 3 Mile Island was cleaned up very quickly. It's still a little, you still got three-eyed fish, but 3 Mile Island was cleaned up very quickly. I was really surprised at how quickly they were able to clean up Fukushima. I mean, there's still a no-go zone there, but to clean that area, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, that really turned off the Japanese too, the nuclear energies, but because they were really big on nuclear energy too. And now, from what I was reading after that, they are like trying to turn on, like, obvious reasons for I would say nuclear energy in Japan. Yeah, so I can see that too. But yeah, the disposal of radioactive waste is like I said, dangerous, difficult, and expensive, and high maintenance.
And I bet Japan actually has to loop offshore to send their, because there's really, I mean, Japan is several small islands, so probably not a lot of space to, you don't want to put that right up on the big mountain there, Fuji.
Yeah, so, but as we could see in Fukushima and in Chernobyl, the accidents can be devastating.
Absolutely.
You know, if one does happen. So, number 4, upfront high cost of building a nuclear power plant.
Right.
So U.S. estimates, and this is interesting. U.S. estimates of building a nuclear power plant are $3.5 billion to $6 billion. South Africa was considering building a 9.5 megawatt plant. I can't read my notes, but the estimates for it were between $34 and $84 billion. So they scrapped it.
Why was it so much more there for a smaller?
That I didn't get to see why. It could have been because it was a higher production power plant. That's the only thing I could kind of think of. It didn't say when I was reading it, so I'd have to look into that. I was curious. I was wondering the same thing. Like, why did this cost so much more than in the U.S.?
I mean, yeah, it's like a factor number, not just 2 or 3. It's a factor of 2 or 3, which is all different.
Yeah. But high costs up front to build them, but once they're built, cheap to run and produce inexpensive energy. So.
And you said they last what, like 40 to 60 years?
40 to 60 years. So
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. Number 5, uranium. It's a very finite, I guess, ore. Actually, they were saying there's probably only maybe 80 years of uranium left in the world.
Oh, wow.
At least that we know of. So, and it's only found in a few countries, so it's not found a lot. It's a relatively rare ore, so it's not renewable, found in a few countries, and it's limited amount. So that's the other thing that with nuclear power, we're talking about nuclear fission.
Right.
So I'll talk about nuclear fusion really quickly, which has been in the news a little bit lately, which me and John have talked about.
Yeah.
And
really excited about.
Still not viable. Yeah, not a viable energy source as of yet. But if and when that does become a thing, that's gonna be a worldwide game changer right there. So
yeah, absolutely. Because what they're talking about, the reason it's not viable is because of payment.
Yeah. So Lawrence Livermore was doing some experiments on fusion out there. They had some success on it. I think they got 70% of the power back from what they put into it, which was pretty high. So that's the best that they've done. The other thing is trying to contain it. So you're fusing an atom together compared to splitting an atom, which is what fission is. It's a different type of beast. So that's kind of, once we can keep that. So it's not just creating that energy, it's containing that energy. So, we don't all die. I'm not a Russian nuclear scientist. I don't know what kind of safety backups they had there. Obviously they failed. And obviously we learned from that too. I think, and I'm sure the Russians have obviously as well, as like, okay, here's what happened. How do we not make this happen again? So,
Right.
not saying, learn from your mistakes. That's a pretty big mistake, obviously. But there's that fear that could happen. But when you look at that could happen, you look at coal plants, the production of greenhouse gases and emissions that they definitely produce, that happens when you use coal power plant or natural gas. They produce a ton, a lot of pollution. So, nuclear power plants don't create pollution, unless there's, something happens, which is rare, right? So, and so you kind of look at balancing that out, I guess. So, so we have 98 plants in the United States, one accident that we know of. I'm gonna throw that in there, 3 Mile Island 42 years ago. So what did we learn from that? So so it's just I think nuclear energy is very viable. And they're looking at as I was just talking about, I ended on uranium. They're looking at polonium, which is a byproduct of nuclear power plants from the waste. Another one they're looking at is thorium. And so those are the other ones they're looking at. They're trying to make nuclear power, I guess more viable, easier to get. If we could figure out how to use polonium, which is a byproduct of fission from nuclear power plants currently, and apparently we have a lot of it, that would be a good way to go. And then you look at other things too, like they're decommissioning the old Nimitz class aircraft carriers and their nuclear power plant, nuclear power subs and stuff like that as well. So nuclear power is around, and I would say relatively safe.
Yeah, to sit in front of the bullet all day long and watch ETAC things and make sure that thing stays neutral.
And I are not nuclear scientists.
No.
but yeah, I'm a big nuclear power backer ever since 2004 when I studied nuclear energy. And I would say up until then I was I would say relatively indifferent, if not even against nuclear power. But I've always been kind of for it ever since then.
The thing about nuclear energy, even today, is that so many people are, and please don't take this the wrong way, so many people are ignorant about how it works and how good it works and how clean it is. Yeah, that was in the details. Hey, thank you so much.
All I have.
I think Donovan did a fantastic job here. And of course, I always think I do a good job, but Donovan has pointed out that I don't sometimes. He's good for that. He keeps my ego checked out. Listen, we're going to. I just want to say this to our audience, all 3-4 of you. We are going to be changing our focus to civics in about 3 weeks, because I'm going to run this show. This is the last of this set. So this is show 3. From 1 and 2 are with Alex. From this point, we're going to start working on civics and what civics is to us. To me, civics, the essence of civics. That's not right. Not the essence of civics, but the base of civics for the United States. And I'm pointing at the Constitution. I know my giant head is in the way, but for me, civics,
enormous head.
Yeah, but my political civics, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, how we accomplish things in Congress, that kind of stuff. We're going to focus on that. We're also going to focus on what we call public civics, where you donate your time, or you donate your energy, you donate your money, or you work for charities and that kind of thing. Donovan has adopted children, which is just an amazing thing to me. That's a big heart. That's a bigger heart than people really generally have, to reach out to help children in need, just because there's no other reason. They are in need, and you're going to reach out and help them. We want to focus on military civics, service in the military, and what happens when you come home. We are going to start working on those things. We'll probably do some other interviews, because I really enjoy doing the interviews. We would love to talk to, I was going to say Cara Dune, but that was her character. the Mandalorian. We'd love to talk to her. We would love to talk to. Can you help me out with that, Donovan?
Talk to who? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember her name, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, well, I'm sure somebody will tell us in the comments. Oh, you guys are a bunch of dummies. Us, not you. We would love to talk to the Ghost Guerrero boxer. He actually lives near me, and he has a ring downtown. Very cool guy. I think he's a fascinating individual. Some of the things that he's had to do to get to where he is, his family, he's just a really a really neat guy. We would love to interview him. There's other people we would love to interview. That's one of the things we're going to do. But I really want to start focusing on civics, public civics, work civics. I'm going to continue to do this kind of work, period. Like I said, when we did the veteran suicide prevention show, we're going to do that every year, even if it's the only thing we do. The other thing that I want to start doing is trying to be kind of like Toys for Tots, in that we're going to work with a 501c3 so that we can get donations, and you can get the tax write-off, because we think that's important for you. And we want to help children across the nation. I know out of the 3 or 4 followers that we have, we are spread across the nation. We actually have somebody in Vietnam that watches our show. That's kind of cool. And so if you know a child who would like a specific gift, we're not going to send live animals. We just don't think that's safe. And I'm not going to deliver them either, because I'm not going to go out. But I am going to allow my beard to grow all the way through December. And we'll do a side show that is just Santa Claus, and we'll do a background for it. And we can talk directly to the child, just a really quick, hey, this is Santa Claus. I'm really, really happy that we were able to get you this present. That kind of thing. And that's it. I don't want to know where they live. I don't want a picture of them. As a matter of fact, that's why we're going to partner with a 501c3, so that the addresses that come in go directly to that 501c3. They won't come to us, and we can protect everybody in the circle, us and the children included. But really, I really want to help children. The light that they get in their eyes when they get a present they didn't expect is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I just want to give them that, because sometimes that's the only light they get all year. That's what we're going to try to start doing. And you'll know that in probably a couple of weeks after this show. Okay. Thank you all very much for watching. We truly appreciate all of you. Do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of our shows. We try to do a show, this kind of show, at least once a week. We are also on Anchor, which can be, our podcast is on Anchor, and that's the audio of these shows. And you'll be able to get that from Spotify and all the little channels that you can get your podcast on for free. We don't charge for it because, it's not really worth a penny, but there it is. Thank you so much again. Donovan, you're the best, dude. I don't care what anybody says. Have a great night. Bye-bye now.
Love you guys. Ciao.
Well, I'm Donovan, and John's here with us today. Thank you for joining us for the free exchange of ideas, and we'll see you next time on the next show. See ya!